In episode number 30 of Roots of Humanity, I talked to my friend Kamya, who is a digital nomad and spiritual educator, about her Hindu roots. Ranging from meditation, yoga, and ancient health practices, Indian heritage is alive in the present because of people like Kamya. Born in England, Kamya has a lot to say about the Indian diaspora.
We do have a lot of Indian Hindu people living in England that have either moved from India or even from other countries like Africa.
But she's traveled far and wide throughout Southeast Asia, and we hit it off discussing India's different regions. A perfect conversation for anyone who is planning a trip. I reminisce about my solo trip to India that ended up in a bus crash while we talk about festivals, women's rights, fasting, and South versus North Indian food. Tune in for a fast-paced conversation about one of the world's most exciting countries, home to perhaps the deepest spiritual community out there. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get into it. Hi Kamya, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great, thank you.
Where are you now?
So I'm currently in Gujarat, in northwestern India.
I've been there.
Oh, nice. Okay, great.
Gujarat. You know, I was just reading randomly the other day about this religion in Gujarat. Do you guys have like this different religion there where people fast for like weeks or months at a time?
Yeah, we have a lot of different traditional communities, like really small communities, and each of them have their different sorts of rituals and traditions. And definitely, most of them incorporate some element of fasting. So it could be even for like a month or weeks.
People just told me about it. It's common. What's this religion where people fast for a long time? Oh, and Jainism.
Jainism, yes, yes, indeed. So Jain people do fast, and also during the month of Shravan month, which is essentially the month of Shiva worship, you could call it essentially. So a lot of people fast continuously during the Shravan month because it's supposed to be a time of deriving spiritual power, and Jainism also has a lot of parallels, following the same sorts of traditions.
What's your religion?
I'm a Gujarati Hindu, as I grew up in England, but my roots, my ancestry are in this state in a small town called Vadnagar. And you could call it by Sampradaya, which is kind of like an ancestral lineage identity in Hinduism, which is a wide subset of many smaller, you could call it ancestral rivers, which essentially are derived from the ancient rishis and the ancient times, which were many thousands of years ago. And so by Sampradaya, I'm a Shaivite. So essentially my what we call Isht Devta. So you can call it the deity or even just a form of consciousness that you're kind of connected to. For me, that is Shiva, as a lot of people know Shiva as a popular Hindu deity. So that is my identity.
Awesome. Wow, so much information here. Where did you grow up in the UK?
So I grew up in Manchester.
Like born and raised?
Yeah, so I was born in a different part of England, but most of my time was spent in Manchester, and then I actually permanently shifted to India after finishing my university, so that was around 5 years ago.
A lot of people shift the other way. They move from
Yeah.
India to the UK. So what brought you back to your roots?
Well, for me, it was everything from the lifestyle. So the quality of life here, I find, is so much better. In terms of work, what we call work-life balance. Also, my ancestral roots are here, so being able to constantly indulge in that self-discovery journey, being able to constantly seek out knowledge. For example, I just spent around 2.5 months living in Varanasi, so that's definitely not something I could do in England. And I love
Whoa.
Europe, I love England. But it was a range of factors, and also the fact that I want to contribute and give back to my land was one reason why I decided I want to come back.
Good for you. Can I ask your age?
Yeah, I'm 31 now.
I'm 31.
Oh, wow, high five.
1991?
Yeah, 1991, yeah.
What month?
October.
Okay, cool. I'm May, so I'm just a little bit older than you. There's so much to unpack here. I'm trying to figure out how to steer this conversation because before we talk about India, I'm so fascinated about the Indian diaspora in the UK because there's so many Indians there, and the Indian food is substantially better than anywhere else in the world aside from
Oh,
India,
yeah.
and it's not even close. It's not even like, I mean, you could argue some other places where you can find like really good Indian food.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Dubai. I mean, like Dubai is half Indian, so of course there's gonna be good Indian
Yeah.
food in Dubai. But like the UK is like takes everything to the next level. Tell me about what it was like growing up in the UK with, I'm going to completely make up a number, and maybe 5 to 10% of the people there have Indian heritage. Do you know the number in the UK?
I
It's
have no
big.
idea, but we do have a lot of Indian Hindu people living in England that have either moved from India or even from other countries like Africa. And so I actually had a lot of Indian culture when I grew up. So I used to take classes for learning the sitar, so classical music. I also learned my native language, which is Gujarati, so I learned how to read and write. And of course, that was like a really long time ago, so I'm nowhere near as good as I was when I was like 12.
Hmm.
But I think that really did have a major kind of impact on my curiosity as an adult to kind of reconnect and learn these things a lot more.
Totally. My neighbor across the street, I can see her house from my desk. Her parents are from Gujarat, but she grew up in Wisconsin, and she went to the same university that I went to, and we graduated the same year. I went to University of Wisconsin, but we never met in college, and randomly we're just neighbors now in Arizona, which is
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
But she also like retained that Gujarati language from her family. But she grew up in a small town in northern Wisconsin where it gets like
Hmm.
minus 30 degrees Celsius, minus 40 degrees Celsius in the winter. And she was the only Indian person like within
Oh my
miles and
God.
miles of her hometown. It's just, I'm just drawing the parallels between, and she's also Gujarati. Did I mention that? Did I say Indian or
Yeah, you
Gujarati?
did. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so she like speaks Gujarati and her family's from
Wow.
Gujarat. So I
Yeah.
just think that's a cool parallel. But the point
Yeah,
is,
for sure.
there's a lot of Indian people, obviously, in the world. It's second most populous country in the world, but it's about to be the most populous country by the year 2030. Did you know that?
Yeah, I'm aware that it is growing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the year 2030 they're predicting that India will surpass China in terms of
Wow.
population. Which, when I look over at my map here, you could probably fit three Indias in China, at least two. You could fit two to three Indias in China, and the fact that there's, I mean, 1.5 billion people is just astonishing. I'm jumping all over the place here, so bear with me. But what are some of your favorite regions to go to in India?
So, one of the first ones I would say is Himachal Pradesh, so in the Himalayas. I just absolutely love Himachal Pradesh. I love the small villages, the local people, and they have so many unique traditions. Their way of dressing, their food, even their weddings are like of a particular style. And the one unique thing about Himachal is they have a deity or god for each of the small villages. So, like, unlike the metro cities, in the villages, they still convene and, they connect with their deities and they have like this whole community feel, right? Where they all come together. Someone's getting married, the whole village will come and celebrate with them.
Amazing.
Um, and then you have, of course, the incredible nature. And Himachal is actually known as Dev Bhumi. So Dev Bhumi in Sanskrit means land of the gods. So there's also a lot of spiritual history, even with like Shiva and Parvati. So Parvati Valley, you might have heard, is quite a famous place in India, and so that place again, is a lot of ancient history going back. And those same sites, you can see the same temples that are described in our ancient scriptures as well. So yeah, Himachal Pradesh is definitely one beautiful nature and spiritual reconnection for me. I love South India as well. I just feel that the whole diversity of South Indian cultures is really fascinating. I don't personally speak any South Indian languages like Tamil or I'm forgetting Kannadiga. Huh? It's a little late
No,
at
they
night,
speak
so my brain's.
in Tamil Nadu. What do they speak? They also speak it in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, they do. They do. They speak Tamil in Sri Lanka.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I thought. Yeah.
But I find it really fascinating how, we have like, so let's take, like, if you take one religious festival like Navratri, which is celebration of the Divine Mother, right? Now, these things will be celebrated in so many different ways. Like in Gujarat, you'll have these garbas, which are massive dances, which are done in circles. And in Tamil Nadu, you will have a whole different set of celebrations, and I think that's what really astounds me as I've traveled throughout the kind of north, the south, east, and west, is to see that there's what's linking is there is a common thread that's linking all these different things, and so even though there's a language barrier, I still feel that I'm able to connect and I'm able to understand some of the different experiences.
India is a continent. It's a subcontinent. It's by far the most diverse. I mean, you could also look at China. You could look at Russia. I mean, I was just in Siberia. I was right before the war. I was in Siberia, and that was fascinating. But there's also only 100 million people in Russia, which is just the size of Uttar Pradesh or half the size of Uttar Pradesh. So it's like
Wow.
when you think about just so many people, so many different cultures, values, traditions,
Yes.
rituals, that's why I'm so drawn to India. I have done the Southern Ring. I started in my most recent trip to India. I started in Kochi, and I literally drove all through Kerala to the literally the southernmost tip of the mainland, and then I went
Awesome.
up to Madurai. Was really interesting if you've ever
Yes,
been there.
Madurai. Okay, beautiful.
Really cool temple there, and then I went to Pondicherry, Chennai, and I did that whole thing. That was my
Yeah.
most recent trip, but I drew a lot of parallels to Thailand
Oh, yeah.
from that trip to India because the cuisine, a lot of coconut is based into a lot of different curries and different spices. I mean, because North Indian food for me was a lot spicier, very different, very heavy,
Yeah.
and South Indian food is totally different. Dosa, you have all these cool dishes that are only in the South, to my
True.
knowledge. By the way, I could be making mistakes left and right, so correct
No,
me
no,
if I'm wrong.
no.
I'm sharing with you my kind of India.
No, it's totally true. And I think definitely South Indian cuisine is a lot lighter because it is kind of, there's less coconutty flavor. And North Indian food does tend to be quite like a lot of onion,
Yes,
garlic,
yes,
a lot of
yes.
spices.
So I drew a lot of parallels to Thailand, also with like I don't know, like it was so different. There weren't like cows in the streets when I was in like Kochi and Tamil Nadu. Maybe I just the places I went, but my first trip to India, on contrast, I started in Goa and I went by myself. I did Pune, Mumbai. I stayed in Mumbai for a few weeks and then I went up. I went to Ahmedabad, but I didn't stay very long, just 2 nights. I know that's in
Okay.
Gujarat. And then I continued up to Udaipur, Jodhpur,
Oh,
Bikaner,
wow.
Jaisalmer, which I loved. All of Rajasthan was fascinating. And then I went to Delhi, did the Triangle, to Agra and stuff. And then I did Jaipur. And then I went to Varanasi and Rishikesh, which I loved. And then my trip cut short because of a bus crash that I was in. It was a really, really bad story.
Oh my
But yeah,
God.
so that was my first trip. And then the other one was second. And talk about two completely different worlds. I mean, it's like, I don't know what other country you could go to that's so different. I mentioned Russia, that's one. But like, it's so, so fascinating. And I want to throw this out there that I am planning another trip in 2023, but I'm going to be going to all of the remote regions because I'm just most interested in Manipur, Nagaland, Sikkim, like the northeast. I'm so interested because so few people go there. Meghalaya, like Tripura. I don't know if I'm saying these places right,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, yeah.
also the north, like Himachal Pradesh and Jammu and Kashmir. I'm also interested in,
Ah,
and the town of Leh, Leh. I have a couple
yes.
friends that have been there, so that's kind of my next mission is to go
Mm-hmm.
to the India that most people don't know exists, like the less crowded parts of India. What do you know
Yeah.
about some of these regions?
Yeah, so Leh is, I haven't personally been there, but I have been to Spiti Valley, which you could say is a Himachal version of Leh. And it is just incredible. So when I went there for the first time, it was like I was in a different planet. Like it was the whole landscape, just like these huge, expansive valleys, different colors. And it's at a really high altitude. So a lot of people say you should really, and it's necessary to prepare for altitude sickness. And even for Leh as well, it's at a really high altitude. And a lot of these places have a lot of hidden monasteries. So some of the monasteries that I went to in Spiti, the doorways were really small. And, I was wondering why. And they said, well, in those times, people were really short in height. So they're like so ancient that it's like the whole human biology has evolved. And of course, just the energetic vibrations and the nature there is just fascinating. Plus, I think the fact that a lot of these places are quite disconnected from the internet, very disconnected. So they've maintained this purity, of their life, this purity of even what they consume and their food, and their connection with nature. So I think all these places are beautiful, and Leh is I believe to be just like that.
That's so exciting, and I can't wait to get up there. As I said, just totally different world than what most people know, and
Yeah.
I like to surprise people. I like to go. I want to visit remote tribes, and I know that there's a lot of tribes in that northeastern part. like Nagaland. And do you know anything about
Yes.
those regions, or is that just like a different world for you?
Yeah, so I haven't been there, but there is this one festival that happens called the Hornbill Festival, which you may have heard of. So
Ooh.
yeah, so that's where a lot of the kind of different tribal folk come and they actually gather once in a year, and it's like a music, dance, and culture festival. And I believe, again, with each part of these northeastern regions, again, they have their own very specific traditions, and they vary across all these regions.
Yo, this looks awesome. I don't know why I didn't know about this festival. Whoa.
Yeah, if you can go, definitely.
This is crazy. Hornbill Festival. Wow.
Yeah,
I'm putting it at the top of my list right now. But that it's in December. I can't make it this December, but I'm going next year. Nagaland's
yeah,
Hornbill Fest. Thank you.
yeah. So
I'm just
there's a
writing it
lot of
down.
the really amazing tribes there as well. And I have had some friends that have gone and they've told me stories, but I'm yet to explore. I've been to Sikkim, but I'm yet to explore the other ones.
How's Sikkim?
Sikkim is really beautiful. I think it's one of the cleanest places that I've been to in India. And again, a really good place to connect with nature because, it's just been so well maintained. And it's on a height, so you have the clean air, and and all the ancient sites have also been preserved really well.
Wow, you are so well spoken and knowledgeable about India. It's really really nice
Appreciate it.
to
Thank you.
replenish my India, whatever's been missing in me forever. Because you know, India's a love hate relationship, as you probably can
Oh,
imagine.
yeah.
And when I had my bus crash there, it was really bad, and I talked about it in my content. And I don't know if the word offended is the right word, but I made a lot of Indians upset. But then I went back and I made some like incredible stories all around India. Um,
Yeah.
the way I explain India is just like everything thrown at you in the face all at once. Everything, colors, smells, um,
Everything.
crazy luxury rich, extreme poverty. It's just like, and it's like every vision you turn, especially in the cities, it's all
Mhm.
there. It's all there at the same time. And
Yes,
so,
yes.
and it's exciting. It's exciting. I went there for the first time as a 25-year-old by myself, and I just had, I think I grew more from that trip than any other trip. And so I
Mm-hmm.
always recommend people to go there. It challenges you.
Yes, it does,
And
yeah.
of course, like the beauty, it's just like absurd. The buildings there and stuff, right?
Yeah, even for me, the most transformative period of my life happened when I was here. And, like you mentioned, kind of this like love-hate relationship. Of course, it's been a lot of challenges, but huge breakthroughs as well. And, it's like over time I've started like this whole, it's like you mentioned, it's everything. It's like a whole celebration going on every day. And what I find most fascinating is that
Hmm.
you have the ancient civilization living parallel to the modern one. So whereas Mesopotamia, Mesoamerica, Inca civilizations, mine, all of them were wiped out by religious invasion. The Vedic civilization is the only one which has kind of survived to the extent that it has survived. In places like Varanasi, you can see these kind of people practicing things and rituals and festivals, and they're going on since so many years. And even in the metro cities, it's like you have, like you mentioned, you have these incredible five-star hotels and just people who are just super rich, and at the same time you have these remnants of the ancient civilization. And I'm always kind of I'm confronted with an inner conflict as well, like you mentioned, the poverty and the wealth. And so all these things do of course stir up, and I think that's what India does to everyone on some level. It stirs your soul, like it makes you confront yourself, because everything is inside, and so it kind of forces you to confront the challenging parts and the good parts. And then like somehow you, as you mentioned, you grow and you find something out of yourself.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. I want to transition a little bit into your social media because it's really fascinating. I've seen some of your reels and some of the messages that you're putting out there. What's going on in your world of Instagram?
So I started my Instagram journey in around 2017 properly. It was when I got my first camera, and I started solo traveling in around 2016. So I went to Cambodia, I went to Vietnam. I spent a lot of time in the Himalayas, And then I actually got a job. So I got a job as a supervisor for randomized control trials in economic research here in India. And I did actually eventually want to do a PhD in economics. And then around 2 months into that, I realized I don't want to do this. I want my autonomy, even though this was like my dream job and money and prestige and all these things. And so I was like, okay, I'm done here. And then I went back. And so at the time, I was online tutoring. So that was how I was making my income as a digital nomad. And I was own content creation only started coming like some time after that. So that's when I started, growing. I started doing some different collaborations or doing some social media marketing. And I feel like Instagram has had a major part in my journey as a traveler and also as a spiritual seeker, because it's really allowed me to connect with people from across the world, and also in India, because I do have a lot of Indian audience and followers. So I like to connect with the community. So I regularly do like community meetups or do different workshops. And these things I think have been some of the most enriching. And I think it wouldn't have been possible without social media.
Yeah, it's really awesome. So you said most of your audience are Indians, or is it like half
Yeah.
half?
Most are from India, and then I have some audience from Europe and some from America.
So are you trying to inspire others who are not Indian to introduce them to your culture? Is that also one of your missions?
For sure. Like I really love to do that. And especially I see a lot of people in what we call like New Age spirituality. A lot of people are interested in either coming to India or learning more about,
Yes.
Indian knowledge systems, but they
Yes.
don't know like how to start, or, they're scared because it's really scary, for someone to just land up in a foreign country. So I'm definitely interested in doing more of that. I've been a little slow on the social media front for the past few months, but definitely that will transpire in the future.
Sure. Let's talk about Gujarat. Just one of the how many states are in India? 30 something?
I honestly don't know.
Hold on. How many states in India? I think it's like 30 something. There is 28. Okay. So
Okay.
let's talk about Gujarat. It is one of 28 states in India, but one of the most known, I can say, because I mean, it's not far from Mumbai.
Gujaratis are everywhere in the world. You'll find them in
Gujaratis are.
all countries.
What is Gujarat known for? What's happening in Gujarat?
So I would say the first thing is we are known for our very grand Navratri celebrations. So these are Nav means nine and Ratri means night. So these are 9 nights of celebrating the different manifestations of the Divine Mother Durga. And so what happens is these people dress these amazing costumes and they do these concentric circular dances and they go on the whole night. And
Like a
people
wedding?
yeah, like a huge, like a grand sale, like thousands of people, and one of the biggest ones happens in Vadodara in Gujarat. And generally, like Navratri is a spiritual festival, so people fast. I also fast during those 9 days, so I just have fruits or I have fruits and milk.
You fast for 9 days.
Yeah, yeah.
That's insane.
But you get used to it because after the third day, you start feeling high, like without taking anything, because you just energies and like, because a lot of energy goes into to your digestion, right? And so when you take that factor out, and also why fasting during these times? Well, because the astrological alignments of the planets is of a particular form, right? According to the Vedic calendar. So a different energy is being created, which actually supports the rise of the
Yeah.
energy. And so then all these different like dances, and so all of this is like it's all kind of it's how you would say, it's all to raise the energy. And then you also have a lot of different, you have beautiful desert in Gujarat as well, so it's called the Run of Kutch. You have a lot of different types of communities here, and each of them have their own dressing style, they have their own food patterns. So Gujarat is famous for all this different diversity, and I'm still exploring more of it. I haven't nearly explored enough, but definitely I think the fact that Gujarati people are very welcoming, and it's one of the safest states in India. I think
Oh,
that would
really?
probably, yeah, yeah, for women, because Delhi is very unsafe,
Yeah.
but Gujarat is known as one of the safest states for women, like hands down.
Isn't Gujarat a dry state?
Yeah, it's a dry state.
Why? It's not an Islamic thing.
No, it's not. But I don't know. Actually, I think, I mean, something somewhere, something must have happened in the policy. People drink a lot here, like under the radar. I would say Gujaratis do.
I imagine. I imagine. But like,
But it is,
you can't buy it in a store.
no, no, unless you go to like a five-star hotel.
But like, all the states around Gujarat you can drink, so people just go buy beer and bring it in. I mean, it's not.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
not gonna. They're not gonna like put you to jail if you get caught,
No.
right? They just. It's more of like they just don't sell it type thing, and there's no bars.
Yeah, they don't sell it, but I think that does contribute to some of the reduced
Safety.
crime rates.
Cool. So somebody's gonna go to India for 2 weeks, which is not enough time. But let's just say someone has 2 week vacation. They go to India.
Yeah.
Where are they going? What's your suggestion?
Oh, wow, that is such a difficult
I know that
question.
you mentioned Himachal Pradesh. What's it called?
Himachal Pradesh, yeah, yeah.
Himachal Pradesh. That could be part of it, but I
Mm.
feel like you need 2 weeks there. But what would you say? How would you give someone advice for a couple week trip?
Well, I would say if you wanted to do 1 week in the north and 1 week in the south, spend, say, if you land in Bangalore, spend 3 or 4 days exploring some of the ancient temples in Karnataka. If you really wanted to go unexplored
Hampi.
temples, Hampi, yeah,
I
Hampi is
went
beautiful.
there.
Oh, you went
Yeah.
there, okay.
Have you been
Yes,
there?
yeah, I've been there, long time ago. Yeah.
I left that out. When I told you about my trip to India, I forgot to mention Hampi for some reason. Yeah, that's Karnataka, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Hampi's in Karnataka. And so around Hampi, you have a lot of unexplored ancient temples from the Hoysala dynasty. So this is one of the ancient dynasties. And so 3 days, I think, is good to, you can drive around in a car and then make your way up to even Gokarna. So Gokarna is just underneath Goa. Again, beautiful. Explore some of South India. I would say a trip to India, I personally feel, is not complete without at least a couple days or 3 days visit in Varanasi. I feel that's where you just really get to the core of it and you're just like, wow, this place is crazy.
It's so
And
spiritual. Like it's wild.
yeah.
I'm looking at the map. Gujarat is actually really close to Pakistan, and it's close to Karachi, which is the biggest city in Pakistan. Do you
Yes,
see any?
yes.
Obviously, both cultures are so similar. The only and really biggest difference between Pakistan and India is religion. Is there any cross-cultural things happening? I mean, are there a lot of Muslims in Gujarat because of Pakistan, or talk about just being near Pakistan?
Yeah, I think so. I think, for example, if you look at the very western side of the Run of Kutch, now what happened during the religious invasions is that a lot of Hindus were converted. So you have a lot of people that are belonging to Islam, or they
Mm-hmm.
are maybe from Pakistan, but
Mm-hmm.
because we had this whole partition, right? So the border, so then what happened is a lot of them came this side, and so a lot of them, despite religion, I think a lot of people have maintained ways of life which are common. So, for example, you have certain weaving communities, right, who have maintained these traditional art forms, despite the conversions or despite the invasions or partitions and British
Mm-hmm.
colonialism and all sorts. I think that's something magic that you see across India is that regardless of the different communities or different religions, is that we do see these common cultural attributes, even the food and the style of speaking. So I think that's something that's definitely, there is a cross cultural exchange.
The food in India is so good, but unfortunately for a Western stomach, and I have to ask you because you grew up in the UK, do you get sick from the food in India?
So I do struggle because I find it hard to have spicy food. But I do find it fairly easy to get people to modify my food. So I tell them, don't put too much chili, or I have to repeat it 5 times and say, no chili, and then it's okay. But for the most part, and even in my own family, we have very sattvic, very non-spicy food. So yeah, like just generally, I have to be very careful where I eat if I eat outside.
Yeah, on my third day in India, on my first trip, I ate this chicken curry in Goa, and I was just, you know, hands and knees on the bathroom floor for 2 days,
Oh my
lost 10
God.
pounds or I don't know, 5 kilos, and it was just,
Oh.
I was so weak that I couldn't even get to the phone to call the reception of the hotel to tell them that I was not feeling well. It was so bad. But I've also had
Oh,
bad food poisoning in Yemen and Pakistan and Sudan, so it's not.
yeah.
It's just yeah, you got to be careful what you eat.
Yeah, for sure. You have to come prepared for that.
But the food is so good, I must say. All the different kinds of spices and curries, and I mean every region you go to is different. It's wildly different. I'm gonna ask you one final question. You can answer this however you want. If you could say one message to everyone in the world, what would you tell them?
I would say spend at least 10 minutes in meditation every day, observing yourself, connecting with yourself. And one philosophy, if you want to take from Vedic culture, is that this world is Maya. It's an illusion to some extent. And all our human experiences, all the challenges, the ups and downs are all there for a reason to help us evolve, help us grow, and to help us to regain that trust with ourselves, because the world is always going to keep fluctuating, it's always going to keep changing, but what is constant is the awareness that we maintain, the connection that we maintain with ourselves. And so especially in these trying times where you have a lot of different socio-political upsets and different sorts of health issues, that we spend at least some time reclaiming that connection with ourselves, restoring balance. And I feel like this is what is going to heal the world.
That was one of the best answers I've ever had to that question. What's one message you want to give to the world? And I've been asking people that since 2017. So,
Oh my
congrats.
God. Thank you so much. Thank you.
How can people find you on social media?
So my main page is Wandering Kamya, so Wandee, so Wandering Kamya with a K, and I guess it would be written here. And then I also have a personal page. I am Kamya Buch, where me post some random pictures of my tea or things like this. But I utilize both pages.
Beautiful. Well, this has been a really good chat. I'm now inspired to go back to India soon, and I'll let you know when I go back in
Please
Gujarat.
do, yes.
And keep up all the good work, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much. Namaste. Thank you. Bye
Namaste.
bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast episode. If you feel inspired by this conversation, please share it with somebody who would enjoy listening. And if you're here for the first time, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Also, don't forget to leave a review. Every week, I'm going to be looking through them and highlighting my favorite one. And with that all being said, I will see you guys next week.